Hold on tight. It's the weekend. The Extravaganza. Real-time radio. With FemiDlive.
Many thanks for joining in this lovely day. We're pleased to have you. This is The Brief. This is The Brief with FemiDlive. I got to tell you the big stories and putting them in strong perspective for you. How we started off the week, and yes, how we ended the week thus far. I have quite a number of stories to go through. For the next 45 minutes, I'll be laying the foundation of some of the news stories as we would have it and where we are at this time. And I'm glad you are able to listen to us from anywhere you are listening to us. All right, so we're going to start off right away so that you do know what this is all about. But one thing I can tell you is these stories are important, and yes, they would lay the foundation possibly for how the week ahead will go. And the only place you can find out and offer the brief like I do is right here with me. And I'm FemiDlive Amele. All right, FemiDlive Amele is my name. So let's get started now. On Monday, one of the big stories this week was the Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State, Lawrence Ewu-Japo. He denied presenting a fourth certificate of exemption of the National Youth Service Corps. Well, it denied doing so to the Independent National Electoral Commission. Well, there were many wranglings as regards why he could have done so. In fact, this was supposed to be the basis of the appeal of the All Progressive Congress to the Supreme Court when they started holding the conversation as regards what happens next. Well, his counsel made an attempt to clear things up. Take a listen to what he said.
The IG has investigated, written to the NYC, they confirmed same, and they have found out that the error was that of the issuing authority. And once the issuing authority owns up to the error, the certificate cannot be said to have been forged, even if errors are contained there. More worrisome is the fact that newspapers have started publishing the issue of forgery of NYC exemption certificate, and they said erroneous copy has been flying all over the places. So the question now is whether the copy presented was forged. It is only forged when the presenter or child. But now the issuer says the error was mine.
All right, well, that's one issue, but looks like the deputy candidates have sorted themselves out. Of course, later during the week, the Supreme Court said no force on earth can review what they have commanded. No force on earth. No force on earth. So he stays on as deputy governor alongside with Diri, who is now the governor of Bayelsa State. Now, somewhere else out there as well, the former head of state of the country, General Yakubu Gowon, retired. On Sunday, did lead people through prayers, explaining that the country more than ever before needs prayers in order to safeguard their lives, see a situation where security and all the religious perspectives are put in the right way. In fact, he talked about the Christian faith and the reason and the need for prayer.
We bring confession for sins of needless bloodshed and killings and renewed attacks by the dreadful Boko Haram insurgents, banditry, increased state of kidnappings in various parts of the country, and all kinds of evil in our nation.
That was General Yakubu Gowon speaking there earlier this week. Now, the Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, commended the former head of state now for organizing the prayer session. This is what he said.
We need prayers to overcome the agents of darkness and underdevelopment. We need prayers to go out of the woods, which we have been put by bad leadership. In the past, religion was used to divide us in Bauchi. The narrative is now changing, and I'm proud to say that my government is the most accommodating and most representative of all faith.
All right, there. Interesting thoughts with regards to what is going down in that sense of it. Okay, we'll keep up with that and see how it all plays out. Now, moving on, still pretty much tracking the stories that would go on this week. The family of late Remo Football Stars club player Kazim Tiamiyu, yes, the footballer that was killed during an altercation with a member of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad in Ogun State. The police command there in Shagamu, Abeokuta, well, did release a statement, and of course his own lawyers as well signed. Adegbashia Adenola and the spokesman Ganu Tiamiyu said the family and the Ogun State government were looking into the issue and requested that the deceased, the killers of the deceased should be brought to book. Meanwhile, also this week, the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, ordered that the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of the First Criminal Investigation Division, Antonio Ogbebizi, to investigate the killing of Tiamiyu Kazim. Having said that, one of the moves made by the IG was to, cancel out the zonal office or the zones where SARS is running. He made this really clear. He gave the order, said, SARS at the zone level is not too sure what benefit there would be, essentially. And that pretty much put things in perspective. Also this same week, the Islamic movement in Nigeria, Ibrahim Zaki and his wife, again, were adjourned. Pretty much of the matter facing them was adjourned till April 23 and 24. Justice Gideon Kurada gave the ruling on Monday when the couple appeared before him and, yes, pretty much shared his own thoughts with regards to that. Yes, so this, I tell you, is the major thing that pretty much will run the affairs of how this week has gone on and on. Now, let's move on to another set of story. The World Health Organization appealed to the federal government to set up its efforts in eradicating tuberculosis in Nigeria. Dr. Yon Marie Dagu made a plea on Monday when he did visit the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, as part of a courtesy visit to talk about tuberculosis and the influence it has on Nigerians. And so far, how things are going with a sense of difference. Take a listen to this response and, it's admonishment area, pretty much, to Nigeria.
Follow the commitment made by the President, the head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. At the UN high-level meetings, there were 2 high-level meetings held during the UN General Assembly in New York, and the head of state was there, and he made some strong commitment with regard to eliminating TB and also addressing NCDs. So this mission would like to advocate for going from commitment to actions.
And then Minister Lai Mohammed responded as well.
We understood that you come asking for our platforms to use to send out your message. How do we prevent those who are safe from being contaminated by those who are unsafe? And I think this is where I think we've come to the right place. And without being immodest, we have practical experience.
Meanwhile, in the FCT here, Solomon Dai, who is our correspondent, was speaking with the Publicity Secretary of the All Progressive Congress this week and was asking him about what he thinks of the Electoral Act and also political parties. Well, Usman Adaji, who is the Secretary of the APC, responded and said, with the large numbers of political parties we do have, we actually need to cut them back and cut them down and also review the Electoral Act. Take a listen to him.
There are so many political parties that have been in existence for God knows how long and have never made any impact. So rather than continue to have them on the ballot, I think there is need for us to deregister them and allow political parties that are serious in terms of political activities to be left on the ballot so that we can have it right. We still have about 18 political parties, so every Nigerian has the right to belong to any of these political parties. If you're not comfortable with the ideology of any of these 18, then something is wrong somewhere because they don't have the same ideologies.
All right, well, that's interesting. From there, let's switch over to another prominent political party, the People's Democratic Party. They have asked the Supreme Court now to review its judgment on 2019 presidential election with regards to the case of certificate forgery against President Muhammadu Buhari. Yes, they did say so. In fact, the National Publicity Secretary of the party, the PDP, Kola Olagbondiyan, was speaking at the press conference on Monday, stating, now that the Supreme Court looks like it's looking at a lot of things, maybe it can look into the issue of the certificate of the president.
After comprehensive consultations, the National Working Committee of our great party, the People's Democratic Party, states that our party has no choice left than to ask for a review of the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, where the issue of certificate forgery and or presentation of false information in the aid of qualifications was clearly established against the APC and our presidential candidate.
All right, well, we're still talking about review. Well, another set of legal practitioners are requesting for a review that the Supreme Court, well, you've pretty much active. You might as well look into the issue of Imo State, Zamfara State, Bayelsa State, governorship elections, and the tossers that come around with this. Judiciary correspondent, our own judiciary correspondent, Abayomi Akibola, here in Abuja, was speaking with Barrister Abubakar Aliyu regarding clarification on some of the judgment thus far. And if the apex courts can reverse its decision on any matter at all, here's the explanation as shared by Barrister Aliyu on the matter.
At the end of the day, some of the lawyers in these cases that requested for review may receive tongue lashing from the Supreme Court and a cost awarded for wasting of the Supreme Court's time. Because the Supreme Court is not final because it is infallible, but it is infallible because it is final. So when we get litigants start asking for a review of judgment that will reverse judgment of the Supreme Court, then you see we will get to a situation where the Supreme Court is no longer final.
Oh, yeah? Well, let's see how that turns out. But then, Frank Taite, a human rights lawyer, also expressed his own views to this.
The Supreme Court, essentially, its decisions ought to be final, and it maintains that its decisions are final, but it also has the powers where there are glaring and obvious mistakes. If at all there are any in any of its judgment, it can, when an application is brought to it, it can make such corrections. I think nothing yet has gone too bad for the Supreme Court. For the judiciary, I think it has larger questions to answer, but the Supreme Court has done very well until recently.
All right, until recently, well, that's the comment of that very commentator with regards to this. All right, well, let's still keep up with more stories as we would have it this very morning on The Brief with FemiDlive. Here's another moment that was interesting to follow through. Well, this week, we did hear that the Federal Ministry of Health confirmed the first case of coronavirus, otherwise known as COVID-19, here in Nigeria. Dr. Osage Hanire, who is the Nigerian Minister of Health, did confirm the case regarding an Italian citizen who works in Nigeria and just returned from Italy on February 25. That was just the course of this week. It was confirmed positive by the virology laboratory of the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. And yes, that did go on. In fact, he explains exactly how this situation is being handled and what would happen next. Take a listen to Nigeria's Minister of Health.
First, regularly and thoroughly wash your hands with soap and water and use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Secondly, maintain at least 1.5 meters, about 5 feet distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Persons with persistent cough or sneezing should stay at home and keep away from crowd, should not mix around the crowd, and should keep what we call a social distance. Make sure you have good respiratory hygiene, meaning that you cover your mouth and nose with a handkerchief. If you have none of these, sneeze or cough into the sleeve, use a tissue when you cough and sneeze.
All right, well, that was the Nigerian Minister of Health speaking with regards to the COVID-19. And yes, well, what Nigeria is doing, the federal government is doing to ensure that we don't have a possible outbreak of the virus here in Nigeria. He said most of the infected persons do recover quickly, with 80% of those infected showing mild symptoms. He gave precautionary measures on what needs to be done in order to safeguard the day. Let's take a listen to that portion as well of what he said at that moment.
We have been preparing very hard for this for the situation and working very closely with the World Health Organization, is the world body concerned with looking after global health. Just the day before, I saw on the news that all countries should brace themselves for possible entry of spread of coronavirus into their own states. And since then, we have continued beefing up our own security. So a person who gets infected may not show any signs at all within the first few days, like 3 or 4 or 5 days. So the gentleman who came here apparently may have gotten infected at a point, but walked through the screening with no symptoms. And by the time he got to his house, I think a day or two after, he started to feel unwell. And wisely enough, he went to a hospital, and there the doctors examined him, and I believe they found that malaria was negative, and they knew the travel history, and immediately referred him to for a test in Lagos at the Luth Testing Center, and there it was discovered that he was positive for coronavirus, and immediately.
Well, that's how the story really builds up regarding the Italian who traveled to Nigeria infected with coronavirus. They say the situation has been handled. As of this morning, I was following through with what the Deputy Governor of Lagos State was speaking about. That's talking about Obafemi Hamzat, who said the Italian actually did travel from Italy, arrived in Lagos, and then proceeded to Ewekoro in Ogun State before he fell ill. I understand the people he met in Ogun State are currently being guarded in order for them to test them and to ensure that the virus doesn't spread beyond the way we have it thus far. Well, by the way, it is believed that he flew through Nigeria through a Turkish airline before arriving in Ogun State eventually to proceed with this meeting with regards to that. Let's move on to another situation that did build up into this week. National Economic Council, yes, they did say it. And part of the meeting, and part of the outtake from that very meeting was with regards to electricity. Let me take that back. With regards to power supply in the country, well, NEC decided, they said, well, we have to put a hold on this situation where electricity distribution companies in Nigeria are not performing and are not doing their best to keep things going right. Well, after the NEC meeting, the Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shuaibu, who spoke on the outcome of NEC meeting with the Vice President, by the way, the Vice President was in charge of this meeting, explained some of the resolutions they had made with regards to what should happen next. Take a listen to the man you know as Philip Shuaibu at NEC. He was representing his governor, obviously.
He also told NEC that they will be carrying out forensic audit of all bank accounts of all these schools, and also that the state government to provide details of their investment in the electricity distributing companies.
All right, well, that's pretty much the brief in regards to power. As some say, there's going to be a probe in the power sector. Let's see how that turns out. I do know this week I also saw a lot of stakeholders in the power sector argue it all out about the planned increase in electricity tariff and how that would go out. Well, even though there are categorizations with regards to how that would be, but it becomes quite interesting to follow through to see how that will play out. Meanwhile, in the House, in the National Assembly, there's a bill going around. The bill here and there, well, by the House of Representatives lawmaker, Baba Jimmy Benson, is seeking to make a provision for the training and retaining of personnel, that will do much work right there and there in the country. Take a listen to what he said as regards a bill that would see some provision for training and retraining of personnel of the armed forces.
At the moment, Nigeria is at war, but we don't have a budget that can finance a war. What we have at the moment, Mr. Speaker, is an envelope-based budget that cannot prosecute this war that we're in.
All right, well, that's an interesting thought with regards to what is going on in the country. We will keep things going right and keep things as one needs it to be at this time. Okay, well, moving forward now, well, let's also have another conversation on another subject, mainly this very morning. Here we go. Nigerian Labour Congress in Kebbi State, they're really saying all their workers are to begin an indefinite strike come Tuesday. Why exactly? Tuesday, March 3rd is what they're presuming to be ready to go for. Well, they say following the inability of the state government to pay 13,000 minimum wage. So wait, everybody go on strike. It's expected that this strike will allow the Trade Union Congress and all the people to get into one room, I say, with the state government there. Well, we'll see how that turns out at the end of the day. Okay, moving past that pretty much covers that sense of the story in that way. Now, another story that was of interest this week. Let's see. I'm digging around into this. Now, I do know, for example, I mentioned about late Kazimu's family. Oh, yes, I talked about that already. Now, at this point in time, there was also this week when there were talks about how would we respond to the issue of screening travelers who are coming into the country. That pretty much made the leading argument, I will put it that way, in the Senate this week. They were talking about what needs to be done. Really, what needs to be done, if anything is being done, in order to screen out and, well, pretty much ensure that the deadly virus doesn't get into the country multiple times.
Every country in the world tries to ensure that if it has coronavirus, it limits it to those that are affected. While the Federal Ministry of Health and the associated agencies may be doing their best, this best is not good enough. And we shouldn't take anything for granted. We must be prepared. We must take all the necessary measures at our ports, airports, seaports. People who are coming back to Nigeria, especially from areas that have been identified to have this, in fact, should be screened.
That was the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, speaking about what moves the lawmakers think of this whole situation as we have it. Meanwhile, a bill seeking to stop gas flaring in the Niger Delta has passed second reading in the Senate. Here's how that bill plays out, because Senator Albert Bassi has been talking about this. He said the country loses over 200 billion annually due to gas flaring.
Available data from the NNPC has shown that in 2018 alone, Nigeria lost over 217 billion naira as oil and gas companies flared a total of 244.84 billion standard cubic feet of natural gas within the same period. This volume of gas flare, according to analysis, is sufficient to feed 3 LNG trains or generate 3.5 gigawatts of electricity.
Oh, yeah. Well, pretty much as we would have it with regards to that. Let's see how that plays out and if that is followed through at the end of the day. All right. Well said, if I may say, but then there's more to that conversation.
When this bill goes to the committee, I think we should have a date when gas flaring should stop.
Apart from the danger to the environment, what we lose in economic terms is unimaginable. At this point in time in the world, when people are speaking to the issues of environment and the disasters, we are still in this country allowing companies to go away with excesses that are detrimental to the health of our people.
Okay. The Supreme Court earlier this week dismissed an application for the review of the judgment which sacked governorship candidate of the All Progressive Congress in Bayelsa State, David Leon, and his deputy, of course. Well, Justice Amina Ogbe, who read the judgment on behalf of the 7-man justices of the Apex Court on Wednesday, said the application lacked merit and the decision of the court is final. Take a listen to how the councils responded when that judgment was passed. Some with a sense of joy, some differently.
We must know that without the Supreme Court, politicians would have seen destroy this country. This judgment has re-established the finality of the position of the Supreme Court and judgments of the Supreme Court. And we are happy the judiciary has indeed redeemed itself.
It would have been scandalous if the court had acceded to the request to review and change its judgment 2 weeks after it was delivered.
And then Governor Diri of Bayelsa State also made a statement shortly after that. In fact, he called for a reconciliation of aggrieved members.
For me, it is not all about celebrations. It's about moving our state forward. And for that to happen, there must be love. There must be reconciliation. And so for me, it is reconciliation.
And yes, the House of Representatives on Wednesday was also having a conversation as regards the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons to publish the names and pictures of convicted traffickers. Well, they think this move will calm the situation. It said the motion was on the need to investigate the greatest sex slavery Nigerian women are subjected to. Well, presented the motion, the man known as Honorable Kwe Women said currently there are thousands of Nigerian women and underage girls forced into sex in a situation that definitely breaks the law. Take a listen to his argument.
A lot of the young girls, some that are kidnapped in uniform, that are in Mali, are operating. If you Google, you see the pictures of where they are living in. It's where not even your dog you are allowed to live in such type of places. And they are forced to sleep with 20, 30 people in a day, able to pay.
Deep thoughts. And those thoughts about that led Honorable Adebayo Balogun and Honorable Sada Soli to lend their voices to this very bill.
We need to actually do a lot of reorientation because most of the people who are actually getting involved in this trade, like we rightly said, were actually deceived into it.
If you look at the value chain of this sex slavery, it begins from homes. I do not want to get involved in mentioning geographical jurisdictions where this thing is somehow almost being legitimized.
Okay, well, pretty much interesting thoughts there on this very subject as well. Now, still following through now, just to let you in on other situations that did build up just this very week. Remember, this is The Brief with FemiDlive, and I'm taking your thoughts in any moment from now to know what you think of many of the news stories, complex as they may be. Remember, many of the stories are stories I can personally verify, and they are stories that have been produced by the newsroom of Nigeria Info 95.1. Some of the best correspondents I know have worked out and worked on these stories in order to give meaning to you and bring perspective to this very The Brief with FemiDlive. Now, moving past that, the Senate on Thursday admonished the federal government to endeavor to screen travelers coming into the country. I talked about this, right? Yes. So they're saying we shouldn't take things lying down. We should do more. You know, we should do more and not just look at how the situation would go with regards to that. Okay, now another group is calling this time is the graduates with disability. There's a group like that. You didn't know. I didn't know even before now. Well, on Thursday, they were at the office of the Federal Inland Revenue Service to demand for employment. Leader of the group, Kostam Onyegbulam, said they had approached the former chairman of the FIRS, Babachidi Fowler, to consider at least giving 5 slots of jobs to members of this group, the graduates with disabilities. And yes, they gave voice to the reasons why that should be. Let me share with you what they explained on the need for why they should get jobs.
We are here because of the person's graduate with disability. We came here last year. We met with the chairman, and they approved 5 slots for us. And ever since then, since the former chairman left and the director who handled our matter left, we've not heard anything from them. So we are here in our numbers because we want to see the chairman to know the way forward, if possible, get our appointment letters on those approved names. And secondly, to know if more could be given to us.
All right, well, that's quite an interesting story this morning, as we would have it following through with many other perspectives. All right, well, I can tell you this. So much has gone on into this week. The Federal High Court sitting in Lagos fixed the 27th of April, this week, in order to respond to the issue of, well, Bukola Saraki versus the Kwara State government. Bukola Saraki, of course, is the former Senate president. Much talk about whether a final forfeiture of the houses should be done. Justice Rilwan Aikawa fixed a new date to listen to argument for and against a final forfeiture of houses. And this new date is April 27. We'll be around to see how that story pans out eventually with regards to how things are. All right, stay with me. I go on the break right now. Today would have to be the 29th, the final day in the month of February. Happy last day, February, to you. After the break, I'll be back to round off the stories and listen to you make your thoughts. Many stories did go down this week, and I'm wondering if you're willing to bring them up and share your thoughts about them. Stay with me right here. I'll be back after now.
the news. Trust me, I can prove it. I'm ready. Let's take on the biggest debates on radio, provide insights, experience, and build an unforgettable discussion together. I am FemiD. I'm
Welcome back to the show this very morning. As we would have it, the federal government has appealed to Nigerians, to know this, that the coronavirus, that they should not panic in the wake of it being discovered in Lagos. Pretty much the information provided by the Minister of Information. Well, the show you're listening to is The Brief with FemiDlive, and I've got all the details as regards what has happened throughout the week, bringing you in the most brief way I can the stories that do matter. Well, one of the stories that definitely has mattered this week is the coronavirus that was discovered when an Italian did arrive the country through the Lagos airport. And the Minister of Information has been speaking about what Nigerians need to know.
The federal government wishes to appeal to all Nigerians not to panic, as the government is well equipped to detect and handle any possible case. The Federal Ministry of Information and Culture is intensifying its public sensitization and enlightenment campaign on the disease.
All right, well, and as well, he mentioned the fact that Facebook and federal government of Nigeria are working together.
We are therefore urging Nigerians not to fall for the antics of purveyors of fake news and disinformation. Fortunately, Facebook is working with us in this regard. They have asked Nigerians to report any false or misleading report on Facebook and Instagram pages so they can immediately bring them down.
Bring them down. Now, one interesting thing that is also going on at this time is countries around the world are saying no to a lot of the citizens that have, where there's an outbreak already going on in some of those places. They're saying, for example, Saudi Arabia is now allowing Iranians, to travel into its province at this time because of the coronavirus. They're picking out some countries. So what is Nigeria doing if we choose to do? And if you're not doing, in fact, forget all I'm saying, because the federal government says no. It will not stop foreigners who are from some of those countries from traveling in. I didn't say so. They said so. Listen to this.
I wish to assure all Nigerians that we have been beefing up our preparedness and capabilities since the first confirmation of cases in China, and we will use all measures and resources made available by the government to respond to this case. We have started working to identify all the contacts of the patient since he entered Nigeria, and even those who were with him on the aircraft. Please be reminded that most people who become infected may experience only mild illness and recover easily, but it can be more severe in other people, particularly those who are elderly and those who have other underlying chronic diseases.
All right, well, that explains that, as one would pretty much expect it to be. Okay, well, downward review for political actors, or should I say political office holders. There's been a discussion closely working its way into the center stage. Will there be a downward review or an upward review? Jide Ojo, a political analyst, gives perspective to which one it should be.
We have it on good authority that there is still over 100 political associations that have filed application with INEC to be registered as a party. Can we continue in this trend? Would you register a party with $1 million administrative fee, and the government, the federal government, using my own taxpayers' money and your taxpayers' money to now service this party in perpetuity? It doesn't make sense. So we need to reform our electoral process. We need to reform our political system, and that is what I stand for.
Okay, what it stands for. Take a listen to this last insert I'll play for you.
I'm calling on FCT residents to further deepen their partnership with the FCT command by providing information about persons with questionable character and criminal hideouts in their respective communities. The only way we can enjoy a crime-free society is when members of the public make their respective communities inaccessible to criminals by exposing them to the police. It is pertinent to note that indulging criminals in the community is akin to encouraging nefarious activities. We must therefore join hands together to fight crime in the FCT.
All right, well, that was the FCT Police Command there, speaking to FCT residents now. Do this for us. Just share with us people who have criminal tendencies, pretty much people who will provide hideout for criminals and the likes of that. That would assist us in order to curb crime in the FCT. Pretty much of the message there. We'll see how that turns out. Well, I tell you this, there are 1,001, millions of stories across the country. I can't cover them all, but there are some that are picked out to provide you with a brief on. And I've just provided with brief in the last 45 minutes stories that are really leading the way across the country, where they were, where they are now, and what there needs to be done. The week ahead will prove what has been done about them.
Hold on tight. It's the weekend. The Extravaganza. Real-time radio. With FemiDlive.